Please take a seat to start the opening ceremony for this event. Again, thank you so much for coming. Good afternoon, everyone. This is the annual event of the Cardiology Updates, the best of ESC. Allow me first to welcome the chairman of this opening ceremony, Professor Adel Al-Atribi, Professor of Cardiology at Shams University and the past president of the Egyptian Society of Cardiology and the past president of the Working Group of Intervention. He is a well-known figure of cardiology in the region, and he's an expert in the field of intervention cardiology. Professor Mohammed Satih, Professor of Cardiology, Tanta University, and the past vice president of the Egyptian Society of Cardiology, and currently he is a board member of the Egyptian Society of Cardiology. Professor Khalid Al-Nadi, he is the treasurer of the Egyptian Society of Cardiology, professor of cardiology at the Military Institute, and as well he is currently in the Armed Forces of College of Medicine, the co-director. And he's the most important person because he is the one who has the money, so all of us are in need for Professor Khalid to support our meeting. So thank you so much, Dr. Khalid, for coming and joining this event. As I mentioned, that the annual event of Cardiology Updates, it's a most important event every year because we use this to organize this event to cover the new guidelines, the new EC guidelines. And this year we have new 4 EC guidelines, and in addition to the clinical trials. But what's new in this event, that we are delighted that a distinguished group of experts from different countries in Africa are joining us in this event. So thank you so much, Professor Abdul Khan from Senegal and Professor Ali Trey from Niger, and the distinguished group of faculty. Thank you so much for coming. So we have to thank them for choosing Egypt to do their annual event yesterday. It was a great event, and the joint session with the Egyptian Society of Cardiology and all the experts from Africa was a great event. So Professor Nabil Farag is the current president of the Egyptian Society of Cardiology. He had a commitment and he's coming within a few minutes. So I will give the speech for our faculty in 3-5 minutes before listening to the president of the European Society of Cardiology, Professor Thomas Lucher. It was supposed that he is joining us today, but unfortunately he couldn't, and he will give his speech as an opening for this meeting. And also we have physically in person 2 distinguished faculty representatives of the European Society of Cardiology. We have Professor John McEvoy. He is the chairman of the new hypertension guidelines, and he will cover everything related to the new hypertension guidelines. And also we have Professor Elmer from Sweden, who is involved also in the chronic coronary syndrome guidelines. And we have a session after the opening which will cover the chronic coronary syndrome guidelines. Professor Adel, Professor Steha, Professor Khalid.
Thank you very much, Professor Magdi, for inviting me to be on this podium. I'm now a past president, not the actual president, but it's always a pleasure to be with you. But Dr. Magdi has been the international figure in Egypt for a long time. He knows that I was encouraging him to be more and more involved in heart failure, and he's now one of the world-renowned heart failure experts. He's always there in any meeting for heart failure, and I can say also that he's been in the European Society of Cardiology guidelines update since several years. He was chairing this for several years. It's always a pleasure to have our African fellows coming to us in Egypt. and the ties between Egypt and the African nations is getting more and more stronger. It's an honor for me to welcome you all in Cairo. The Egyptian Society of Cardiology is one of the oldest societies in the region, and with its renowned about now more than 6,000 participants, cardiologists, all are cardiologists, which is a very big figure compared to other areas. I don't want to take too much of your time, but it's an honor for me to be here. I would like to also again to congratulate Professor Magdi for his efforts and his continuing efforts to have the latest updates in the guidelines. We had 5 new updates in guidelines that we are eager to know what's new and what we'll be dealing with. Thank you very much, Dr. Magdi, and thank you for attending.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Welcome you from Africa, our brothers and colleagues. And thank you very much, Dr. Magdi, Professor Magdi, changing the heart failure cardiology in Egypt. And now in Africa, and he did very good work. He's very overthinking and over arrangement for everything. He always encouraging us to share him with all his meetings, all his meetings are unique meetings. Thank you very much, and thank you very much again, Dr. Magdi, to bring the African colleagues here to make some work together, and this should be done a long time ago. That's to share for all Africa in some research and good work. Thank you very much, Dr. Magdi, and welcome all of the African colleagues.
Good afternoon, dear professors and colleagues. I'm sorry for speaking in English. Actually, I picked my kids to write me a short speech on French, but they are fluent in French, but they ignored me. So sorry I'm speaking in English. However, on behalf of the Egyptian Society of Cardiology, I'm so much flattered to welcome you in Egypt. First of all, I'm so happy personally because this is the first cooperation and relation between the Egyptian Society of Cardiology and the African Cardiac Society. And we were trying so hard to maintain this relation and to enforce the relation to discuss what's recent in cardiology and to know from the other our neighbors, African doctors, and to let them learn from us. This is a very unique event, and I will urge our colleagues in Africa all to be our partner in the research and in the cardiac science. I would like finally to thank Professor Dr. Magdi Abdelhamid for just a flattering introduction to me. He did a very, very hard effort to finish this meeting. Actually, I see this with my eyes. So thank you very much, Professor Magdi. I'd like to thank as well the organizing committee. Again, more than welcome in Egypt, and we are so happy to be with you, our colleague from all Africa, and thank you very much.
Before listening to the speech of Professor Thomas Tucher, I'd like to invite my dear friends, Professor Abdul Khan and Professor Ali Touré, to join us here and to, please, to give a short talk. And also, I'd like to invite Professor Hussam Hassan. Professor Hussam Hassan is here, the past treasurer of the Egyptian Society of Cardiology as well. Professor Hassan. Professor Abdul Khan is a professor, well-known professor of cardiology at Senegal, and Professor Ali Touré from Niger, and they are experts and well-known, very active in the field of cardiology for many, many years. Professor Abdul Khan and Professor Al.
Good morning, distinguished participants. I really want to thank you all, especially Prof. Magdi, but also the Egyptian Cardiac Society of Cardiology. As you all said, our commitment is to do our best to make the cooperation between African countries a reality, and of course Africa opening to the other rest of the world. And that's why naturally we thought that to be involved in this beautiful Congress will be for us an honor, but also useful because we are sure that we will learn a lot from you. And yesterday we had a fantastic meeting between the Egyptian colleagues, which shows that we have a lot of things to do together. And we are more than 130 participants from many regions of Africa. And we are really honored to be here. We thank you a lot for your very kind words. And it's our commitment to make sure that we will work together in the few years coming. Thank you for.
Thank you very much, ladies and dear colleagues. It's a pleasure for me, and I would like, on behalf of all of you, to thank the Egyptian Society of Cardiology, particularly Professor Mahdi, and our friend, brother, and colleague, Professor Khan, who we have arranged this meeting to put. We know that Egypt is the leader in medical fields, particularly in cardiology in Africa. And as I can't say a young, but a past trainee of Imbaba Cardiac Institute here in Cairo, it was exactly 30 years ago, 1994, at the time of Adel Imam and Professor Hamed Nasr and Professor Osama Ghanem of Shams University, who used to come in my country to give lectures of neuropsychiatry. It's a pleasure to come here to join to this Gen ESC Best Of, because really we have appreciated. As yesterday I told, when we hear about Egypt, we remember between 6 and 7 special things. Of course, pharaohs and the pyramids. The second and the third are Suez Canal and the football player Salah, of course, because Africans are fond of soccer. The fifth and the sixth are the two Magdis, Magdi Yaqub, because still now we are involved in rheumatic heart disease, and of course, the very famous Magdi, Abdel Hamid, who make the link between us recently, and the seventh one is really the Egyptian Cardiac Society, which help us to be involved in this Best Of ESC. I would like to thank everyone to come here and to congratulate the Egyptian Society for all what has been done in Africa to be the leader in the cardiac field, particularly in the ESC recommendations. Thank you very much.
Now we will listen to Professor Thomas Lutcher, the current president of the European Society of Cardiology. Please.
Hello, I'm Tom Lutcher. I'm the president of the European Society of Cardiology and the cardiology practicing in London and Zurich, respectively. I'm delighted to welcome you to the Cardiology Updates 2024, the best of ESC. On behalf of the president of the Egyptian Society of Cardiology, Nabil Farag, and my colleague and friend, Mahdi Abdel Hamid, who is the president of this conference. The London Congress 2024 was a true success with 26,500 participants on site and 5,200 online. But more than that, we had 12 hotline sessions with numerous papers published online as fast tracks in the New England Journal of Medicine, Lancet, in the European Heart Journal, and many others. Furthermore, we had quite interesting late clinical science presentations, and importantly, we presented 4 new ESC guidelines, namely one on hypertension, one on atrial fibrillation, one on the peripheral arterial disease, and the 4th one on chronic coronary syndromes. All very important topics affecting our clinical practice. And so it is really welcome that in this conference we are discussing these guidelines, in particular with a focus on arterial fibrillation as well as hypertension by our colleagues Dr. Omabrovich from Göteborg and John McEvoy from Galway, Ireland. Both involved in these guidelines and very knowledgeable in the field. In addition, there will be features on these aspects, on research presented, in particular also case-oriented presentations, which are particularly important to learn more about the implication and the implementation of these recommendations into clinical practice. I'm particularly proud that the Egyptian Society of Cardiology makes such a conference possible. This fosters our strong relations between this eminent society in North Africa and the European Society of Cardiology at large. And we're delighted that Magdi Abdelhamid now also chairs a task force in our society to further intensify the relations between the societies from North Africa and the Middle East with our European Society of Cardiology. So with this, I wish you all the best for this conference. I'm terribly sorry that I cannot be face-to-face and only welcome you online, but I'm with you spiritually and wish you all the best. I'm sure you will learn a lot for your clinical practice thanks to an Egyptian faculty and also an African faculty, which expands this reach of this conference beyond Egypt itself. With that, I thank you for participating, and all the best from my side.
So by this, we can close the opening ceremony to shift to the next session, which is guidelines for chronic coronary syndrome. I'd like to invite the chairperson of this session to join us on the stage.